It's still happy hour with John Gaskins, so go ahead, have another.
All right, time for liftoff, the Matt Vitzthum era at USD. It is game week number 1, Central Connecticut State. He's named his starting quarterback, which was the highly anticipated announcement of the summer. And here we go, Dakota Dome at 1 o'clock. And it's great to have Vitz here. He'll be with us every week, every Tuesday, in the lounge chair there, looking very relaxed. But you have said that you maybe you were joking, but last night you said you might be throwing up right before the game. Is that a joke, or is this something that tracks in your lifetime in big moments like that?
Certainly may happen. I can tell you that. Yeah, I'm not sure how I'll respond on Saturday right before kickoff, but yeah, there's a possibility that I'm in the bathroom calling some dinosaurs for sure.
I mean, how has it been just as you get closer and closer to Saturday? By now, you've been the head coach for several months, and there's all kinds of checkpoints. We've talked about this during those checkpoints along the way of being what it's like being the head guy. But now that you get closer to a game, what kinds of emotions or thoughts or anything are you going through?
Yeah, I'm really excited. I really am. I'm excited for our guys. I'm excited for our coaching staff. It's been a lot. It always is, right? It's a long 9 months here since Christmas. um, to really kind of get things going, right? And we've been going against each other, and you're in the weight room, and it's so much, against each other. It's time to be on the same team again, and yeah, they're excited to go out there and showcase what we're about, and I'm excited to be a part of that. You know what I mean? I'm no bigger than anybody here, but it'll be a fun Saturday. Regardless of what happens, we're ready to go out there and give it our best shot.
What kinds of things did you learn from or even ask Travis Johansson about when it comes to being a first-time coach and head coach and in those very same shoes at USD? It was only a
Yeah,
year.
I think the big thing is like not getting too involved on the calls on each side of the football and being just a little bit more like, hey, what's the feel of the game going on, right? Like, when are you needed? What decision is 2, 3, 4 plays away versus you're in that moment, and for me, watching, hey, what are the safeties doing? What's our quarterback thinking on each individual play call? It's separating from that, and having that 10,000 foot view of, hey, what's the game feel like? What's about to happen, and are we ready? And I got to make sure everybody's alerted to those situations. So I've tried to do everything I can, in scrimmages and at practice to put myself in those positions. But yeah, I'm sure the game will have some surprises for me, but that's part of it.
You know, a lot of coaches say that the advice that they get when they're in these shoes is be yourself. At the same time, how much of a believer are you in that, especially during a game, on a game day, and throughout a game? You've heard the cliche, team takes on the personality of its head coach. First of all, how much do you believe that?
Yeah, I'm not a big believer in that. I think, when you're dealing with, 100 guys, right? Like, there's a lot of personalities in there, and you got to let the personality of each guy kind of show a little bit. And then obviously, we have a culture and some of the things that we believe in. I hope that's what really shows up on tape, not the personality of myself. It's what we believe in collectively should show up on tape.
However, how well or in what way do you feel you should present yourself on a game day in front of your team?
Yeah, I mean, that's a great question. I've thought about that, right? What do I need the players to see? What do they need to hear? I think, like, I'll go back to what you said. I'm going to be myself, and probably some of that is probably be a little too emotional at times. But that's okay. Like I said, I'm here because of what I've done, and I'm going to continue to be that. I don't necessarily know what that looks like from an outsider's perspective, but just going to be myself and handle business as usual.
Since when in your life have you dreamed about being a head football coach, particularly at the college level?
Not till about a year ago.
Oh, come
I
on.
I
You're
haven't. I've always been an offensive person that has
yeah.
just been all about the X's and O's on offense and all about getting a quarterback, kind of in the right mindset and the development of that position. So,
Yeah.
to be honest with you, have not dreamed of this until about a year ago when Travis and I had some conversations about this, and then obviously had some conversations with some of my mentors. But yeah, it hasn't always been the goal, to be completely transparent. But since being named the head coach and starting to have some of those feelings and thoughts, it's been great. Can't dream of anything else. Excited for the opportunity.
Who are some of those other mentors?
Yeah, I'd say the number one mentor I have in my life when it comes to coaching is definitely Matt Mitchell. He's the associate head coach at Wisconsin. Um, if anything in my career happens, that's probably my first phone call, whether he likes it or not. But he's going to hear from me. Secondly, Eric Kaler coaches at the University of Minnesota. He was my college coach. He's on the short list of guys I call right away for advice. So those two guys, I've obviously talked to Coach Nielsen a bunch because he's the seasoned vet of that crew. And yeah, reach out to those guys whenever I feel like I need to.
What has Bob told you?
Yeah, a lot of the same, right? A lot of the same of like, hey, be yourself and trust that you're ready for the moments that you're going to be needed, but ultimately let your coaches coach, right? We got a lot of really good coaches in this building. They're ready to go. They'll have their guys ready to go, and I got to kind of get out of the way. But when they need me, I'll step in and be there for them.
Well, let's get into those coaches, particularly on the offensive side. You've mentioned that you've been mostly an offensive guy and working with quarterbacks, and I would think that fell well into being the head coach when deciding between three quarterbacks all spring, uh, through much of the summer, and landing on one, and it's Austin Majetsky, and that announcement was made last night. But before we get into specifically him, just how did you go about that decision with your coaches? You ultimately know that you're the final veto power, final decision maker on everything. But how did you guys go about finally landing on this one player?
Yeah, when we hired Heath Parling, Coach Morrison and myself, so Coach Morrison, our offensive coordinator, and myself both coached Heath in college. So a lot of familiarity with Heath, felt really good, and they had worked together at another institution as well. So when we hired Heath, all three of us sat down and really kind of roadmapped the next 8 months. We hired him in January, and we knew that this decision was looming. We knew that this would be a big decision for our program, and there wasn't just an automatic, hey, this guy was going to step into that role.
Yeah.
We had three guys that we thought were very viable candidates after signing Jackson Proctor. So we sat down and we just laid out kind of a roadmap of what the next 8 months looked like. And we knew right away, we would split reps pretty evenly throughout spring ball. We would, slide a guy in the summer with a lot of the ones and maybe guy with the twos, but move them around still pretty equally. And then we made the decision that after a week in fall camp, we were going to make sure that a guy got the opportunity to be the starting quarterback here and really kind of take hold of the job. And the roadmap stood true. The process that we laid out really, really, really worked out well. And we really are excited about where we landed.
So you picked Austin Majetsky about a week into fall camp, and that kind of started giving him the bulk of the number one reps.
Yeah, we thought it was really important to have that guy go through a ton of situational work with the ones, right? When I talk about situation, you're talking about red zone, third down, you're talking about 2 minute, 4 minute scrimmage situations. Wanted him to, and he had earned that, right? We didn't just give him that. He had earned that right to take those reps. And we wanted the guys around him and we wanted the one defense to go against him every single day, right? Like that iron sharpen iron
Yeah.
mentality. And I really think, when we got Austin into that role, he stumbled, but really, really pleased with how he picked himself off the mat and how he's kind of ended here these last 10 days. Feel really, really comfortable about where he's at.
You mentioned after a recent practice, maybe about a week ago, when Matt Zimmer was down there, that you did throw the kitchen sink at him and all these guys. And so, from the outsider, which Matt is coming in, it looked like he was really struggling on that day. And the iron sharpens iron thing. How delicate? How do you go about deciding we're going to throw everything, make everything really hard? So maybe the games will seem easier because he's going against a great defense, and you're giving him. But how do you walk that line between that and you still want him to make a lot of plays and develop some confidence going
Yeah,
in?
I think it's a great point, right? There's that fine line of you bury him and he starts to lose, confidence and he gets a little bit rattled. But our thought was, let's try to rattle him. Let's try to see if we can shake his confidence because if he can bounce back from that, we know that there's going to be some adversity this season, right? This is
Yep.
not going to be a perfect season. We're going to stumble in a quarter. We're going to stumble in a half. We might stumble for a full game or two, right? Can he and that guy pick himself off the mat with the help of his coaches and teammates to get back to the position that we need him to be in? I think that's a big underrated trait that quarterbacks you need. I mean, you see it all over in the NFL, right? Like the first round pick goes in there and stumbles, like does that organization and does that group of people around him, do they support him well enough to get him back to where he's capable of getting? And I think we've done that here in the past week. Austin is feeling as good as he's probably ever felt. We installed a lot of the game plan already with him, and we've practiced once on Central Connecticut State, and he's looked really, really sharp, really, really good. So, like I said, we've had a process. That process has worked out really well for us.
Yeah, I mean, just within this time that he got okay, now he's taking number one reps and you're throwing everything at him. When did you know after that point? Like, can you take us and give us a play, a series, a day where he had to adjust to or react to some adversity and you saw that and it clicked?
Yeah, I think the first time he had gone 2 2-minute drills and he hadn't gone down the field and we hadn't scored or tied the game right at the end of a practice. And it was like, okay, like, can he do this, right? When the moment is on and they know it's a pass and the pass rush is coming after him, like, can he find his way? And it's not a perfect play call, right? And he really found his way. And he led us down the field in two straight possessions, right? He went down and tied the game with a touchdown. And then in overtime got the ball. We simulated that. And he went right in and scored it. And I think we all kind of looked at each other and were like, this is it, man. Like he's got it. And then he followed it up. The next day, I in the middle of practice just blew away and we spotted the ball. None of the coaches knew what we were going to do, and we set the ball down. And Tim called two really good drives with him, and he, put us right in position. We got a field goal once and a touchdown, and it was like, okay, like he's pushed his way through some of those down days and some of those days where it wasn't perfect, and he's found his rhythm, and we found our rhythm calling plays for him. So those were kind of the back-to-back days. It was like, all right, he's the guy, and let's ride with it.
You mentioned Tim Morrison, the offensive coordinator, and look, now we'll kind of walk backwards to when you decided early in fall camp. Okay, he's going to get the number one reps. He's going to be the guy. We want him to develop that for a few weeks. And you've mentioned in the past, before and after, last night, that it's his arm talent, probably the best of the three, and also he's developed trust. He's done the things when it comes to controlling protections at the line of scrimmage and checking into plays. Uh, he's put all that into his arsenal to go along with the arm talent, and also he has the legs. He's not maybe as dynamic of a runner as one or both of the other two, but more as we've joked, more than we've seen with Aiden Baum in the last 3 years. Okay, but what? Give us some examples of how he earned that beyond with those things. What did you see out of him maybe in the spring and early in fall camp that earned him
Yeah,
the
I
reps?
just I just think he really started to stack some days, right? Like he had always kind of shown some flashes of like, wow, that was a really special drive, or that was a really special period in practice. I think, at the end of spring ball and really kind of into the spring game, and this, like, it just started to see a really consistent guy, a guy that showed up with the growth mindset, a guy that started to develop trust with his teammates, and he started to stack days, right? And when you start stacking great days at that position, other people around you really start to notice that and gravitate towards you and want to play well around you. And I think he started to do that, right? And I think an underrated thing that he had to learn how to do, he had to learn how to, what does this quarterback thing at college, what does that all entail? That's a lot, right? You're the face of the university. Whether you like it or not, you are. And, a lot of eyes are on him. And if he makes a mistake or missteps, there's people there watching and hoping he does. So he's really started to stack some of those days and been a more consistent person on and off the field. And the guys around him have really gravitated towards that.
Sure. And you've also mentioned that he's had to learn how to take the ball from under center a time or two, which
Yep.
you're going to have to do in your offense, which he never did as a two-time Gatorade Player of the Year at Littleton in Colorado. What is his personality like, particularly as a leader when he's guiding the offense?
Yeah, so I would say this, he is right here all the time, right? Like he could throw a pick and he's going to come off the sideline and be like, that wasn't a very good throw. And he's going to throw a touchdown and he's going to say, that was a pretty nice throw, right? There's not a lot of ups and downs with Austin, which I really, really like.
Yeah.
There's times it's like, hey, man, like we need a little bit more juice out of you. But I think the consistency of who he is as a person and who he is out there is very calming to our offense. It's very calming to the guys in the huddle. He's never going to feel rattled. He's never going to feel out of sorts, which is really good. But he's also going to be the guy when we score, he's just going to kind of trot off to the sideline and get on the iPad and get ready for the next series. So it's an adjustment to who he is. He's a pretty laid back kid, pretty cool, calm, and collected. So I like it. I think some other people have really started to have to kind of get used to that because it's not normal for a football guy.
Well, it might not be normal for, he's a redshirt freshman, but still a rather young, who's 19, 20 years old. So it seems like a rarity in that case as well.
Accurate. Yeah, very much so. There's times that he should be way more rattled than he is. It's like, I'm not sure you know how big of a deal this is right now.
Well, I guess in your case, hopefully he never does. You've heard stories, I'm sure. Maybe you've experienced it throughout your times as a quarterback's coach and an offensive coach at different levels. When you go through this, first of all, I'm guessing you've gone through this before, deciding on a quarterback before a season starts, and sometimes players want to have a say, or players will come up to the coaches and be like, we're telling you, this is the guy. Did that happen in this case? And how much kind of influence did you and input did you allow teammates?
Yeah, so our leadership council was heavily involved throughout the whole process. So our leadership council is 14 guys, kind of all over throughout our program. There's a couple transfers in there, some seniors, juniors, sophomores. So there's a wide array of guys on that council. I've met with them, I think 5 times since the beginning of summer training. And in every one of those meetings, we've discussed where we're at in that process. I also laid out the process of which we had as a coaching staff to those guys. Like, here's what we want to do. Here's how we see the thing going down. I think by the time I met with them the third time here in the middle of fall camp, they were all starting to get a pretty good feel of where this thing was headed. But they are also such great kids. They were never, nobody was like, you should do this or you shouldn't do that. The answer always like, we'll support whatever you guys think as a staff. But they started to get a pretty good feel where we're at on things pretty early in camp because again, we've been together so long, right? Like all summer, all fall camp, like they knew and they've been right there in the trenches with us.
Okay. Who's going to be the backup?
Yeah, I think that's a really good question. I think we are still kind of sorting that out. If we get to that situation, we would probably go a little bit of back and forth with Nevin and Jackson. Um, yeah, I mean, to be honest with you, that's kind of up in the air right now. We're splitting reps at practice to determine that. There's a possibility if we would get there, you'd see both of those guys. To be honest.
Well, we only now have about 10 minutes to go through the other 21 positions on the field. So you we know what you got in your running backs and that you're going to lean on Charles Pierre and Keandre Jones Logan. That is going to, if they can produce, give you guys some short second and third down situations. That takes the pressure off of everyone, including Austin Majeski and his receivers. You've mentioned multiple times with me in July, again last night with John Thayer, Braden White, a young player, saw some promise out of him in the return game last year. Before the 5-for-5 rule came in effect, you were, you were keeping him under that red shirt threshold. But why? Why is Braden White emerged as a guy that you guys just can't keep off? You feel like you can't keep off the field.
Yeah, really, really, really unique personality, really unique kid. I've never in my career had a standout receiver be a high school state champ wrestler. He's a wrestler. He has that mentality. He's tough. He's nasty. We can line him up all over. He can block. He can run routes down the field. He can run them in the intermediate game. He's pretty snappy. He's twitchy. I think he's got an all around game that we can build an offense around. So really excited about him. Really excited about his growth throughout fall camp. And again, excited for him to go out and be on the field for us offensively, not just in special teams, but offensively and showcase his skills.
Okay. And same thing for Lucas Feldkamp, a redshirt freshman. I had the pleasure of enjoying watching him wreak havoc at Brandon Valley for 2 or 3 years alongside Hudson Parliament. And you tell me how often even redshirt freshmen start on the offensive line, and again, why? How did he emerge?
Yeah, very difficult to do. You nailed that, right? Especially, at this level and in this league to be able to play this early on. Lucas has really earned that opportunity. I'd start with Lucas, football IQ wise, one of the smarter, intelligent football players that I've been around. Really grasp what we're trying to do, really grasp what the defense is trying to do. I think when you're young like that, that's the first thing, right? Can you get a hold of mentally what's going on in our playbook and also what the defense is doing? And Lucas has done that seamlessly. So, really, really proud of Lucas. There's a possibility in the first game Lucas could play multiple positions. So, even more than just Lucas being out there, he might play some center or tackle for us in the first game. He's had an unbelievable offseason, improved his strength, has had a really, really impressive fall camp in there for us. So, I'm excited, man, for Lucas Feldkamp.
Yeah.
He's going to be a star for us.
Did I get that wrong? Is he going to start or is he going to rotate in a lot?
Yeah, I think in the first game we'll probably see 6 or 7 offensive linemen for us.
Sure.
Whether he starts or plays a lot, pool or pond at this point, they're all going to get some significant time in there, and he'll be a part of that.
About a month ago at Missouri Valley Football Media Days, I mentioned to you, or asked you to mention areas that people may be surprised by, or people aren't talking about a lot. And, quarterback, as I've proven again today, can suck up a lot of the oxygen. But you mentioned the offensive line. And on the surface, that would surprise some people because only one of your 5 offensive linemen are returning starters. But, we've detailed this on this show that you've got a ton of size and you do have a ton of experience at other places, like Utley from UTEP and Nick Herzog, who has been, played in the Big Ten at Northwestern. And you got guys like Grant Chapman, Brendan Crispy, who have played 15 games, all 15 last year at USD. They just didn't start. But yeah, and they're big, big gentlemen. What else? Why do you figure that the offensive line is not going to miss a beat, even though they haven't started together?
Yeah, I think it starts with the leadership. I think obviously Tim, our offensive coordinator, is a lifelong offensive line coach. Plus, you bring in James Bain from the University of Minnesota. I just think the development and the leadership that I've seen, Tim throughout his career really, developed those guys, and obviously James coming in here and those guys really working hand in hand. I trust those 2 guys to really put a great product on the field. And then, you nailed it. I just think we have a really, really great group of, guys that we've developed in our program, and we've added the right transfers, the right guys, right, that have the right mindset, that maybe have done things differently at a different institution, but have came in here with a growth mindset and are really, really excited. I can't tell you, that's probably the group I'm most excited kind of see gel together out there on Saturday. We're a work in progress, and like I said, we may play 6, 7 guys up there, but I'm just excited to watch those guys go at it and start to build kind of their resume this season.
Sure. And then over to the defense, where it's fascinating to me. It's happening up north at the other Division I school in South Dakota. A couple of Division II Northern Sun Conference transfers making noise and coming in right away. And you guys wouldn't be interested in them, and they wouldn't be there unless you thought they were ready to play at this level. But Isaiah Ray, the Concordia St. Paul transfer, you've called him dominant and unblockable. Again, just give us some examples of what you've seen that we might see on Saturdays.
Yeah, first of all, I tell you, Isaiah got into our strength program and absolutely blew up. We're talking 25 pounds in 5 months. Just I think all of the resources and the time and the energy and the effort that we can spend into those things that maybe they couldn't there has really shown up, and that's no discredit to them. It's just the amount of things that we do and the amount of emphasis or the points of emphasis we put on that here. So one to see that, and I just think his skill set fits what we do defensively. Right, we're a heavy-handed, all hands-on guys, defensive line. We're not edge, rush around. Like we're right through the center of guys, and I think that's his skill set. So I think him coupled with Coach Nelson's coaching, I just think he's been a perfect fit, and I think that's what gets overlooked a lot of times with the transfer portal is can you fit in schematically, and do you guys fit and gel together? And if those things come together, a lot of times it's a really good marriage, regardless of where you came from, right? And Isaiah has just been a perfect fit for us on and off the field. He's developed, and again, just another guy really, really excited to watch, run out, with the motorcycle and watch him go at it because I'm tired of watching him beat on our tackles every day.
Okay. We've mentioned Chris Dixon over and over again as a guy who just demands more than one blocker, opens things up for guys like Gabe Hardman and a pretty salty linebacker crew. Gabe's a captain now. We really enjoyed our conversation with him last week here on Happy Hour. And so, in lieu of time, I'll just move on to the opponent. And look, you have a team that, as you mentioned, same head coach, same coordinators. That's sometimes rare in FCS football for 3 straight years now. So they're going to bring some consistency to the table. What I'm curious about is how do you like an opponent like this? You're not opening right away with an FBS team. You're also not opening right away with a Division II team, or certainly, a team that struggled to win last year. How do you like this as a test?
Yeah, love it. I can't tell you how much I love our non-conference schedule to open up. Credit to Corey Jenkins, our associate. I mean, he's just been awesome setting things up for us. But Central Connecticut State's a really good program. A program that's been in the playoffs 2 straight seasons. I think they're looking to take the next step as a program, and that's to win playoff games and to stack themselves up against the top FCS teams. 2 of their first 3 games, they're facing Montana State, I believe, in week 3. So they're really trying to figure out where they're at as a program. You nailed it. There's a lot of consistency on tape. You watched 2 years ago. It's a very similar outfit, structurally, schematically, culturally. You can see the things that they believe in on tape. So it's a really good start for us. It's a really good test for us to start. I know our guys this team has their full attention, and they're excited.
They're going to have a new quarterback and a new running back, and you're going to have to adjust to that. But conceptually, from what you've seen, what do they do on offense that's going to be really tough to start? And how do you?
Yeah, they're an RPO based offense. They almost every single play is an RPO, or run pass option. So, our defense, that'll be something new for them. That's not something that we do a ton of offensively here. So, again, to get adapted and adjusted to that, you nailed it. They've typically had a pro style quarterback. The kid that they've listed as a starter isn't necessarily that. So we'll have to settle in and see what their game plan is against us. That's what the key to a lot of openers is, right? Like, what have they adjusted in the offseason, whether it be scheme or whether they've done something different to adjust to their personnel. We're just going to have to kind of settle in and see what that plan is against us.
It's going to be fun to watch. Really, thank you for taking your time this morning. I love your backdrop there. You got the bookshelf, you got the trophies, you got you got the red neon sign.
There you go.
Um, it was an enjoyable conversation. Best of luck, and do what you got to do before the game.
Yeah. I appreciate it. I mean it. Thanks for your support, and thanks for the coverage.
Matt Vitzthum, head coach, USD football Saturday, Central Connecticut State. We'll talk all about it next week here on Happy Hour. Cheers.